Hello, makers. My name is Jen, and I'm the host of Making Conversation, a podcast for people who love yarn and the stories behind what we make. Every episode, I sit down with makers across the fiber arts world to talk about their journeys, their projects, and the communities that we build together. Before we dive in, a quick note. The 2025 Flock Talks will start dropping next week, and I cannot wait to bring those conversations to you. But first, I wanted to share this very special episode. This chat actually started on stage last year at Flock Talks in 2024. The topic of this 2024 Flock Talk was writing a book and getting yourself published. Well-known fiber artists, one a knitwear designer and the other an embroidery artist. Knowing these two and how passionate they are for everything that they do, I wanted to re-record and get into it a little bit more and also give it a well-deserved place right here on this podcast channel. So earlier this year, end of May, I want to say, we sat down to keep this conversation going. And today, I finally get to share it with you. It felt like the perfect moment to release this because technically, this is a Flock Talk, but just from 2024. And also, both of these makers were involved in 2025 Flock Fiber Festival. They just didn't sit on stage with me. My two guests are these incredible creatives. Sari Nordlund is a knitwear designer whose timeless patterns and thoughtful approach have inspired knitters around the world. And Melissa Galbraith is the embroidery artist behind MCreativeJ. She's known for her playful, approachable designs that make stitching accessible to everyone and a lot of fun. Together, we cover way more than just books and publishing. We talk about the emotional connections that we have to our projects, the challenges and joys of creating something lasting, and behind the scenes of publishing a book. You'll also hear advice for any of you aspiring authors out there, how they balance work with personal creativity. And of course, a few fun rapid fire questions to get to know them a little bit better. Whether you've never thought about publishing a book ever in your life, or you've always dreamed about taking your crafty knowledge to print, this episode is for every maker because it really gives a good peek behind the curtain into what it takes to create the books that we all love about making. If you love this podcast, the easiest way to support is by subscribing, sharing with your maker friends, and on social media. And if you're feeling extra supportive, you can buy me a virtual coffee or support monthly over on my Ko-fi page. It's linked below. I'm so grateful for everyone who watches, shares, and helps keep the conversation going. All right, y'all, grab your project, get cozy, and let's jump in to my conversation with Sari and Melissa.
I'm Melissa Galbraith. I'm the fiber artist behind MCreativeJ. I specialize in nature-inspired hand embroidery kits. I teach hands-on workshops, and I'm the author of 3 hand embroidery books.
My name is Sari Nordlund, and I'm from Finland. I have 2 knitting books. The last one came out just a month ago, and I'm a knitwear designer, and I also teach knitting courses, most cables, but everything else as well.
Let's dive in to your maker journeys. Where did everything begin?
In Finland, we learn how to knit at school. Well, I did it back then, but then I picked it up again in university. And back then, there weren't really any great knitting patterns available. They were like very old-fashioned. And I started making my own patterns, and I've been knitting ever since. Yeah. So that's it in all shortness. So 20 years of knitting in one little sentence.
Yeah. So did your family all knit or?
No, nobody in my family knits. I'm the only one. But a lot of people in Finland knit, and I think almost everybody else knits except people in my family.
Well, I'm rather jealous you got to learn that skill in school. The school where I grew up, we did not do really anything like that. But thankfully, my mom is and was super crafty. She had this giant craft room growing up, and we did everything from like quilting to embroidery, paper mache, bobbin lace, like all of it, you name it, we probably did it. And I learned to embroider probably when I was elementary school age. I will admit I did not like it when I learned because I just didn't have the patience for it. But I picked it back up when I kind of graduated college and got into the workforce because I used to have a corporate job where I sat behind a computer all day and really did nothing that was like tactile. And I missed that tactile experience. And I just really fell back in love with it as an adult. And now I get to embroider full time, which is really wild.
Cool. Yeah.
Can you share a specific project or piece of work that holds a lot of emotional significance for you? And what is the story behind it?
It was my poet sweater that was published in a Line magazine in 2018. And it's the one that really launched my career. I think I had something like 3,000 followers on Instagram before the first teaser photo on Linus' Instagram page. And like immediately after that, it jumped to first 8,000 and then to 10,000. And it's been growing ever since. And that's really kind of like the pattern that brought me into public knowledge so that people started finding me. And before that, I was desperately sending submissions to all magazines. Sometimes I got picked and most times I didn't because I didn't really have the name recognition like back then. And after the poet's weather, like I started getting requests from magazines of would you like to design something for us? And I think that pattern will always hold a special place in my heart because of that. And I still think the lace pattern is one of the prettiest ones, even like after all these years. So that's my special pattern.
Besides it just being a beautiful pattern, do you think that there's something that people really connected with that project?
I believe in like if it's something that I'm like truly in love with, like I have found the like flow in doing it. I think it's always those patterns are the ones that resonate most with people. I don't know why, even though like I'm behind the screen on this side of the world and you're over there, it still kind of like shows and it shines through from those projects. So I think there's like some kind of maker magic in that that like really shines through.
I think that when there's something, whether it's making or anything else in our lives, if we put a certain energy behind it, it definitely shines through.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to pick a specific design or pattern because when I first started embroidering, I actually used to sell finished embroideries. So a lot of my designs are like one-offs that people would then hang up as decor. And I didn't actually start selling like patterns and kits until a few years into creating a lot of my work. But I would say like when I started kind of embroidering, I really approached it as like coloring with thread. So filling in different sections and playing around with colors and creating a lot of textures within it. And I think that approach really helped me figure out my style. And from there, I was really able to develop and play around with a lot of things that helped me become more recognized for how I embroider today.
Were you really into coloring when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, I did so many coloring contests. Like you could ask my mom and she was like, if there was a coloring contest, I did it.
I love that. It's like the evolved adult version of what you used to like doing.
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome. We had this conversation first at Flock last year. So some people did hear these questions. You both have books out in the world. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did your connection with the fiber arts community influence your decision to publish?
I teach a lot of hands-on workshops, and I found that after class or during class, people would really want additional resources to reference or find additional help with. And while I have a website that has a lot of really great resources, people wanted something that felt like it had more resonance and importance behind it. And so I felt that a book would help with that. So I kind of figured out what I wanted to write about. And then I really figured out how to pitch a book idea. Like I had no publishing connections or like no idea how to really write a book or pitch it, but I did a lot of research and spent 6 months pitching this idea and finally found a publisher that said, yes, we want to work with you, and went from there. And it's been really wonderful. And I think a lot of people have found that after like a workshop or something, then they'll pick up a book and be like, oh, this feels more approachable now. There is a lot of step-by-steps that go with this. And I feel like I can now pick this up and use this, which has been great.
I think my knitting books are a bit different because I don't have any tutorials in them. So it's just patterns. So there are slightly different approach. It was probably kind of like the continuation of doing magazines. So in a magazine, I would be just one designer among many others. So for a book, it's just my patterns. And I'm lucky enough to come from Finland. We have 2 amazing publishing houses for knitting books. We have the Laine publishing house that I mentioned earlier, and also we have Cozy, who I have been working with. So it was quite easy for me to contact them and get a publishing deal. So it was me who sent them a message and kind of like told what I wanted to do and asked if there was like interest in making a book with me. And I think by that time I had already kind of like established myself as a designer. So they already knew who I was, and I had quite a large following on Instagram. So it was for them quite a safe bet to start working with me because I had the body of work to show and also the followers to kind of like bring into the fold. So yeah, that's how I got into this. What I like about making books, because otherwise when I work on single patterns, they're like just one pattern here and then another pattern here, and there's like no continuity in it. So it's like little pieces, and there are like PDF patterns that disappear when your computer crashes. So I kind of like to have that one thing that you can hold in your hand, like a collection of things. So it's slightly different to do that rather than just like single downloadable PDF patterns.
I find that as well too. Like a book really helps you focus on like one big idea that's a giant collection, and you really get to focus on like certain patterns or techniques and like textiles and things like that. So it's really a time to focus on, you know, certain things that maybe you don't have time for or something like that.
Yeah. With the book, you kind of have to think about the collection more rather than just like the single design. So you have to think about, first of all, you have to have different levels. Some are easy, some are a bit harder. So not everything can be super hard and super complicated, because then that gets scary and exhausting to people. Like, but then again, there has to be a couple of showstoppers that make people want to buy the book. But not everything can be that, because that's again like it's too much. So there has to be different types of things and different yarn weights and so on. So it's a lot of thinking before you even start to make the first pattern.
You said that there have to be a couple of showstoppers. Is there within, both of your most recent books, is there something that you thought would be like the most popular thing that everybody talked about and it ended up being something else? Or were you able to kind of predict the showstopper within your books?
Well, my new book is just 4 weeks old, so I'm still waiting to see which are the ones that people are most excited about. But there are 2 dresses, and especially one of the dresses was something that I kind of like expected to be the talking point. It's also on the back cover of the book. But it ended up being like the one that everybody says that they're going to cast on first, and the one that I've seen people cast on the most is a more simple t-shirt. So it's a raglan t-shirt with just coconut stitch on the body and a little bit of lace on the sleeves. So that's apparently the one that people love the most at the moment. So it's really hard always to predict which is going to be the fan favorite. If I knew how to make only hits, I would only make hits. But
yeah,
I still, even after this time, I never know which is going to be a hit and which one is going to be a miss.
I feel the same way. My second book that came out was called DIY Embroidered Shoes. And I had an idea like this shoe that's on the cover here, which has all these like fun colors and a little bit of metallic that goes around them. I kind of had an idea this one was going to be super popular because it's super colorful, and it has been really popular. But also this black shoe on the bottom that has these plants and spider webs, it has also been pretty popular. And that was kind of surprising for me because I didn't think it was going to be as fun as it has been. So
But
that
that's
was,
really cool. So I
yeah.
totally get
So
why it's so
yeah,
popular.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I also have a third book that comes out in October, and we just finished editing it. So I'm really intrigued to see what will be popular for that as well too. And I have a little postcard for it. So it's going to have a bunch of like 3D plants that you can stitch. So I'm excited to
Oh,
see
that's
kind
so
of which
cool.
ones will be popular for that as well too. So we'll see.
That's so fun. I love
Yeah.
the 3D aspect of it. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
not necessarily something that you see a
That's
whole lot of.
yeah, and that's something
Yeah.
that I haven't really seen before. Yeah, so it's a bit different.
When you're planning the projects for your books, are there trends that kind of shape the content that you're creating and the projects that you're creating? Or maybe it's even the photography, or is this something that's just like, this is my vision and I am going to put it out there?
I try to think of more like timelessness with the books. First of all, like making of the book, it takes more time. So if I start planning a new book now, it doesn't come out in a year or a year and a half or 2 years. So you can't really take the trends that are like super popular at the moment because they might not be cool anymore after a year or two. And like I said, I think about the theme of timelessness with my books because I kind of want to make them last. So I want to make books that look good in 5 years or even 10 years time. So that's why I try not to go with like the latest things, rather take like a more classical approach. And that also goes into planning colors and yarns that I use. So I try to pick yarns and brands that have been around a bit longer or are easily substituted with something similar so that it's easier for people. So the patterns don't kind of like die when that yarn retires or the color doesn't start to look outdated in a few years.
So with your new book, when did you officially start putting everything together?
The newest one I started last February, so it took me a year and a bit over 2 months to put together. But the one before that I worked on for almost a year and a half. So it took me a bit longer on that one.
Wow. And there's so many patterns in it. The fact that it only took you a year, I'm like, whew.
Well, the new book, I actually only knitted one sample myself. So I used sample knitters for that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have time to knit everything and then keep my like day-to-day business going on as well. So that's one of the reasons why I worked a bit faster on the second book. So I didn't knit as many of the samples myself.
I agree with your timelessness point. I think it is important to create designs that are more timeless and less trendy. When I was creating my books, I did think of trends in a sense of like what is popular for more of like trending in use of embroidery and less of design wise. So functionality, like wearable embroidery or 3D aspects, because embroidery has kind of gone through different trends. Like maybe like 10 years ago, it was really used as like in the hoop for decor. And then people were like, okay, I have enough embroidery to hang on my wall for a lifetime. How can I use it now? Oh, I want to like use it on my clothing. I want to make it more functional. And then, okay, I have a ton of embroidered stuff. Now, what's the next way I can like push the envelope for embroidery? And so kind of like different ways you can use it like that. So kind of keeping in mind those different trends and like how you can kind of continue to advance your embroidery skills and like different ways you can use it. So that's kind of how I look at the trends of embroidery. And so it's less of the design elements and more of like the techniques that are trending.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree with that because like about 5 years ago, I think it was about 50-50 how people needed it, whether it was like bottom up or top down. And kind of like the amount of bottom up designs has declined all the time. And like if I made a book 5 years or 10 years ago, the techniques would have probably been quite different than what I use now. So I'm also interested to see where it's going, like if they're going back the other way or if the themes are coming back at some point.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see.
Has there been anything personally interesting about following the techniques of the trends where you're like, oh, I didn't think that that would go in that direction? Or, oh, I thought that this would be more of a thing in both embroidery and knitting.
I mean, that's kind of been trending how I've been thinking it has been. I'm thinking that maybe like more like beadwork, sequins, and gold work will kind of come in. I haven't seen gold work as much, but we'll see. I think because like we've seen a lot of like AI come into a lot of embroidery, pattern work and stuff. That's why we're getting more stump work and 3D art, because AI looks so 3D that people are wanting to then figure out how to make their embroidery look like that. I'm interested to see how then people want to figure out more advanced techniques. And I think gold work is another one of those steps or like skills that they might want to branch into. So we'll see if that happens as well too.
I'm really interested to see if the 3D trend will come to knitting as well. It will be a bit more difficult to kind of like translate that into knitting, but still, I think that would be really interesting to see. We have seen quite many trends in knitting as well. Like a while ago, everything was speckled, and now you rarely see speckles anywhere. And the mohair trend has been going on for a long time. I was already kind of like thinking it was going away, but I don't know. It's still here, and there are like more fluffy yarns coming. Like I think we used to combine fingering weight yarn with mohair a lot, like these past few years, and now suddenly we are getting like this chunkier mohair yarn. So it's going quite the opposite way that I was thinking. Like I was thinking the mohair was like going away, but it's not yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't, mohair is not for me. It's too itchy.
Yeah. And there was like brioche everything a few years ago, and now nobody does brioche anymore. So I'm really happy that cables are back, because that's been something that I have always loved knitting cables, and I like the look of cables. And I still remember like 5 or 6 years ago when I tried to design some cable patterns, and they didn't really sell because nobody wanted to make cables. And now they are trendy again, so it's my time to shine, kind of like.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm super happy. Yeah.
It goes back to the timelessness, right?
Yes.
Is there a mistake that you made while either creating the patterns for the book or putting the books together that ended up teaching you something that you have taken with you through publishing your different books?
I think you learn every time. Like I have been able to streamline my work. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I worked so much quicker on the second book. Or actually, it's my third book. So I also have one book before these two that's only in Finnish. And that's kind of like one of those projects that like everything went wrong. So I learned so much from that. For example, little things like working with test knitters. I remember the first time working with test knitters for the book, and then I wanted to have all the test knitter names at the end of the book. And like trying to go through all the test knitting emails and trying to pick up everybody's name from there and make sure that I have everybody involved. And of course, there was one person missing. So for the next project, I learned that I set up this like Google Docs, and I shared it with all the test knitters. Like, when you are done with your test knit, write your name here. So I made sure that everybody has written their name, and then it was just for me to alphabetize the list, and I was ready to go. So little things like this, you learn on the way. Probably a lot more stories I could share, but
I think that's a good one. I think that's a good one. Yeah. Organization. But yes. I love that you share the community that kind of helped you, bring this all to life. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's very important to me.
Time management and like organization is huge for me as well. I put everything in like in a giant Excel spreadsheet, and then has like a bunch of columns. Like I'll check things off when things get done, and
Yeah,
it makes it
I
so
do
much
that as
easier
well.
for me to visually see like, okay, you have this chunk of the book done, and then you need to like finish this. When I do my book, it's a much shorter timeline than yours. So for my book that I just finished wrapping up, I actually wrote it in 5 months. So it's
Oh,
much
really?
shorter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a little more condensed. There's a certain amount you have to get done in the beginning, and then there's like a check-in in the middle that you have to submit stuff for, and then obviously everything at the end. So just kind of making sure you hit those checkpoints and then getting everything done in between. So it's really helpful for me to do it that way. And then I can set my own like check-ins and like due dates in the middle for myself as well.
I do that same thing. So I keep an Excel file with everything like, has this pattern been tech edited? Has this been test knitted? Is the sample ready? Has it been translated? Because I do every book in 2 languages. So it's in Finnish and in English. So I have to work with 2 languages. So I have columns for all of that. And I also started with my previous book. I know Jen is going to like this, but we started kind of like this checkpoint champagnes. So because I'm working on my own and I never get to celebrate anything. And if I only wait until the project is ready, it's kind of like I'm already doing the next thing and I forget to celebrate. So I started kind of like, everything has now been written. So let's pop open a bottle of champagne and toast for that. And now everything has been tech edited. So another bottle. And I think that made the whole process like so much more enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is lovely.
Yeah.
That's great. And it doesn't always have to involve champagne, though. Why not? I think that this is maybe the thing that like my therapist tells me all of the time. Did you celebrate that? Are you excited about this? Like, yes. Okay. Did you celebrate it? It's a little thing or it's a big thing, but like taking a moment to stop and be like, I did that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or like,
yeah.
I got through this. That's so important just with everyday stuff. So I like that you've put that into your process. That's really fun. What was the most unexpected challenge you faced translating your artistic vision into book format?
I was really lucky to work with a super amazing team. The person who took all the photos and did the layout is one of the owners of the publishing house that I work with. And she like really understood my vision from the very beginning. It's been really amazing to work with her. Like she really understands what I want and how I want my work to be presented. So I haven't had any problems with her. So I know I'm super lucky with that because I have heard so many horror stories from other people, like not liking the photos or not liking the layout for the first book. The only thing like for the cover was that can we get the title like in slightly larger font that people can see it better. So kind of like this is the stuff that we talked about, and I know I'm super lucky with this.
How do you feel that the publishing house got to understand your vision? Or do you think that that's the reason that they wanted to work with you is because it kind of aligned with what their vision is
I think
too?
it's like I went to them, like I contacted them because I liked their aesthetics. I liked the books that they had put out. They were just starting out with knitting books, so they had only done a couple of knitting books before mine. They started with cooking books and like interior design books, so they had like a very artistic view to start with. And one of the reasons why I went to them was I wanted my book to look more like an art book rather than like a traditional knitting book. I had a slightly different idea for the visuals when I went to them. So I wanted kind of like something a bit more modern. And it was maybe like 4 months into designing. My publisher asked, like, what would you say if we went to Paris to take the photos for your book? And my first reaction was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if my idea will fit Paris because I had something a bit more modern in my mind. but you don't say no to Paris. Like,
Right?
I'm gonna say, but it's Paris.
Do you want to go to Paris to take photos for your knitting book? You don't say no. But I was like, maybe it's because of the theme of timelessness. I think it looked really good there. And I was like so happy to see how the colors and everything I have chosen for the knits, like how they translated to that setting. So I think they would have probably worked as well in a more modern setting. It would have looked a bit different, but Paris is Paris. And I think one of the reasons why this is the book that I'm talking about. So
It's beautiful.
one of the reasons why it's so beautiful is because it's in Paris, because it's impossible to take bad photos in Paris. Like, yeah.
When you say modern, what is the difference? Because I think that Paris can definitely be modern, right? Even though it's very, it is timeless, it's older, it's all of that stuff. But what was I don't know if you could pick a city that kind of embodies the modern.
First of all, I thought that we were going to take the photos in Helsinki because I didn't think that they were going to put so much money into making the book that they would fly me from Helsinki, or the whole team, like the photographer, the other model, and me from Helsinki to Paris, or the other model was already in Paris, but still, like, it's a lot of money for the flight tickets and everything. So I didn't even think that this was a possibility. So that's why I thought that we would have taken the photos in Helsinki. And there are a couple of knitting books that have been photographed in Helsinki, and they are mostly in the kind of like the old town parts, like with the older houses. So I kind of wanted to look a bit different from them and rather pick more modern setting if we were to stay in Helsinki.
Got it.
When I originally pitched like my first two book ideas, there was a little bit of changing of the idea somewhat, just to make it a little either like broader or more niche based on the like audience idea, to help it really fit with appeal and making sure that the projects really flowed and had like beginner, intermediate, and advanced options. But I will say with my third book, when I pitched that idea, there wasn't really a whole lot of changes that were needed after it was approved, because I kind of had an idea of what my publisher was looking for and felt really like good about the idea that I was pitching and really excited about it. But once the idea was approved, my publisher really gave me a lot of creative like control over the book. And I took most of the photos for all of my books, suggested where photos were going and how I wanted things laid out, to give them a really good idea of how I wanted the book to look. It was really exciting to be able to give that input to make sure it was something that I really wanted it to look like.
Have you taken the photos for the next book yet? And if not, do you think you could pitch doing it in Paris?
Yes, no, everything's laid out for the my third book. We just finished like literally going over everything. It's like off to the printer, so that is good to go. I don't know what I could swing going to Paris, but
maybe book 4 in Paris.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I also had a total creative freedom of everything, like all the knits that I have in my book. So I think it's because my publisher started with cookbooks, so they are not knitters. Nobody is telling me that you should be doing this or you should be doing more of that. So I have been able to create everything that I want, and they have really listened to me.
So if somebody was interested in publishing their own book, what is some advice that you would have for them?
If you're publishing in the States, it really depends on like what route you want to go. If you're doing like self-publishing, if you want to get an agent, or if you want to like figure it out on your own, an agent will help you essentially get connections with a publishing house and like get your foot in the door. They will also take a percentage of your royalties though, so that's something to keep in mind. Self-publishing, you're going to do it all on your own from start to finish. So again, you kind of want to have a background there. I went the route where you're going to like do all the research and then pitch your idea. So you do have to do like a lot of upfront stuff, but once you get a publisher that wants to say yes and like work with you, then you really have a lot of creative control and you get to keep all of those royalties for your book moving forward. So that was kind of really nice. And I think once you have that foot in the door, then it is easier to continue to pitch ideas and like continue to work with them and have that open relationship. And I would say just do a lot of research. Like literally, I went online and like Googled all sorts of different craft books and figured out what publishers were out there. And then you just go on their website and they literally list all the different emails of like who the acquisitions editor is, and you can literally copy them. And sometimes they'll have how they want to take submissions and proposals and stuff like that. And then you can like Google how to do like a proposal and what like usually they want to have in a proposal and things like that. That's what I would kind of start with if you're wanting to go that route.
I think it's the same here in Europe. At least in Finland, I had never heard anybody working with an agent. I don't know if we have those, but you can either self-publish, which I thought about at one point, but then you do everything yourself. So you have to source everything, and then I would have the whole house filled with books and be packing all books by hand and sending them out on my own. So that would be away from my knitting time. I also started by looking at what kind of knitting books there are, like in bookstores, online yarn shops, and kind of like try to pick the one that I liked most, both like aesthetics as well as kind of like the quality of the paper and the cover material. Also, I asked around a lot from my friends. Do you know anything about this publishing house? Have you been working with them? How was it for you? So I think like the word of mouth approach is also really good. And I think it's the same as why when we still had a lot of knitting magazines. Unfortunately, they're almost all of them gone now.
Mhm.
But I used to send a lot of submissions. So same thing. You have to pitch your ideas. You have to be able to write down what you want to make and kind of like have at least a little bit of swatches and designs ready to kind of like tell your idea. And then just keep your fingers crossed that you get the deal.
I mean, I will say you also have to be prepared for a lot of rejection and a lot of just not hearing anything at all. Because for those like 6 months when I was pitching my idea, I probably got like quite a few rejections and like heard back from not a lot of those emails I sent out. And of all those, like probably like 50 emails I sent out, I got 3 people that wanted to actually come back and talk to me for like moving forward. And then of those 3, I had my publisher that I work with now, which is Fox Chapel. You just have to keep like moving forward and like it'll work out if you just keep on pushing.
Yeah, and all the publishing houses have their pros and cons. So if you work with a big publisher, they have more reach to different shops and so on. But then the communication might not be as good. My publisher house is a very small one. So it's been very easy to get like one-on-one and talk about things and discuss them. But then it's a small place and sometimes things take a bit longer.
I can only imagine that most of your time, creating and knitting, embroidering is probably working on your own patterns and creating classes and all of that stuff. What was the last pattern that you made for yourself that was not yours?
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
I don't even remember a knitting pattern, but because knitting is my work now, then I try to do other things. So I do crochet as a hobby. So I'm not good with it, so that's why I usually never show it on Instagram. But my son loves Pokemon, so I've been doing kind of like those amigurumi Pokemon figures for him. I have made like Eevee and Pikachu and Mew, and lately the last one I made was a Squirtle. It was a bit above my crochet skills, but I pushed it through.
I will admit, I usually start a personal project and then it turns into like a blog post or something that I end up being like, oh, this would make a really cool kit, or like something that I'm like, oh, actually, like this leads into like, this could be a really cool collection or something like that. So I have not done a personal project for a very long time, unfortunately. So yeah.
Actually, I remember I knitted a dog for my son a year and a half ago for Christmas present. It's a dot pebble knits or something like that, who makes this like really cute bunnies, and that's the last pattern that I have knitted of somebody else's.
But I will say, in the spring, I like to go to what's called Craftcation, which is like a craft conference. So I do other things. Like I'll take a break in April, and it's like a 4 or 5 day event where I do get to like take a bunch of craft classes and dabble in other stuff. And I do that with a couple friends. So then I get to play around and take other classes and take a break that way. So that's always fun. Yeah.
I would love to learn how to do punch needle. So that's been on my list for like a year or two, but I just don't have time or the headspace to try to learn something on my own. So I'd love to take a class sometime.
That's definitely why I go to that conference, because I'm always like, I want to learn this, but I just don't have the time. So if I buy the supplies, it will just sit there on a shelf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if it's on your calendar and you have to physically go to the place.
Absolutely.
I will say punch needle is great when you need to get out some like energy, because you're just constantly stabbing something, but you're making something beautiful. So if you ever have a moment where you're like, something is hard or you're frustrated or whatever, it's a really good craft.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Have you tried needle felting?
I'm so scared to do needle felting,
but I haven't.
Okay, I did that at the conference, and that is even better than punch needle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you really get to like stab it, and that is so much better.
I think it's the tiny needles versus the big. Like, I'm so afraid I would just be like,
I get
blood
that
everywhere. Like,
I get that. I mean, I will admit I definitely stabbed my finger a couple times, but like it didn't really hurt. It was fine.
I started doing some like rapid fire questions that don't really have to do with crafting, just so that people can get to know everybody better. What would you tell your past self if you could sit beside them right now?
Whoa, this is not very rapid.
Seriously.
I would say to trust your gut more. Try not to think so much what other people think about you, and do the thing that makes you happy and feels you.
Trust in yourself, because you're going to figure it out,
You're both very busy teaching classes and flying to Paris and traveling everywhere. What does home feel like for you right now?
Home is where my family is. Usually when I travel, and I've been traveling quite a lot in the past years, it's just me. So I have a husband and a son, and I have 2 cats and a dog. So it's kind of like where they are. That's where home is. Not really like a physical place. It's just kind of like the feeling of togetherness.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
I would agree with that. I also have been traveling quite a bit for like trade shows and conferences and teaching and things like that. Just being able to be with my husband and my 2 dogs, and that togetherness is also what home feels like.
I don't think I've seen your dog.
I have a German Pinscher, so he looks exactly like a Doberman, but he's half the size.
Oh my gosh. We're just peeling back the curtain into your life. Yeah. If you had to enter a talent show today, the answer cannot be craft related. What would your talent act be?
Baking cookies.
Baking cookies, that's a good one. I like dancing. I dance salsa, so it would probably be that.
Fun. I love that. That's so cool. This one is a little bit, it kind of goes back to the first question, but we're going to go into the future. If you could leave your future self a sticky note, what would it say?
Remember to have fun.
Make time for yourself and your family.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I took my business full-time about 3 years ago. I went from like a very cushy corporate job to taking my craft business full-time. So there was like a pretty big pay disparity there. And living in Seattle, it's very expensive. It took me a while to kind of figure out like how to pay myself with my business. And so I think I felt like I had to really push myself and work a whole lot. And I still do work a lot, but it just felt like I wasn't really taking very good care of myself and like my family because I was working so much. And so one of my goals and priorities has been for this year is to really focus on like my health and my family and making time for that, which has been really good.
Yeah, I
want to
think
keep
all of us self-employed people struggle with that. I remember like the first year when I was self-employed, I didn't really know how to take a holiday because it was really hard for me to not answer emails. I always need like when's my holiday, but that's something that I try to get better at. Like when I work, then I work, and when I'm off, then I'm really off, like offline, and I don't answer emails on weekends or on holiday and so on. So that's a learning curve.
Yeah. I mean, for my goals this year, I put them on a bingo card. And one of my bingo card squares is like take a vacation and like take one day off per week. Those are actual squares on the card. Yeah.
It's very important to give back to yourself, especially when you're the main person doing all the things. You gotta fill your cup back up for sure.
Yeah.
If you need to hype yourself up, what music are you listening to?
So, like I said, I like dancing. So I either listen to like really like club music, like dance music, and I put on like really quick salsa songs. That's what I go for. Yeah, salsa songs usually always make me super happy.
I guess I don't really listen to a whole lot of music. Like when I work, I listen to like audiobooks and podcasts, and they're all like true crime and murder mystery related. So this is like a very hard question for me. I don't know if like any song is coming to mind in particular at the moment.
What podcasts are you listening to right now?
I'm bouncing in between a couple. I really like Case File, Park Predators, and Down East, I think is what it's called.
Is there anything that you want to tease or talk about that is upcoming to get people excited about?
Well, of course, my new book came out 4 weeks ago. I have it here next to me. So it's called Summer Knits, and it's Summer Knits. And I also am just like in the beginning phase of my next book, and that's going to be an accessory book. So beanies, little scarves, socks, colors, and that's like not this fall, but a year from now. So
fun.
Love that.
Very fun. My third book will be out this October. It's called 3D Botanicals, Embroidery and Stumpwork, and you can pre-order it now. So if you want to get a copy, you can snag that. And you can always find me at MCreativeJ.com. So I look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah,
appreciate it. I know it was like trying to figure out timing on this. Woo!
Yeah, it's a time difference to Finland. It's 10 hours, so it's 9 p.m. now in Finland.
Oh gosh.
Luckily, it's summer, so it's still light outside.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot harder to do this during winter. It's like pitch black.
That's fair. That's fair. Because we have similar situations in Seattle where you look outside at 9 p.m. and you're like, right now, you're like, oh my God, wait, what time is it?
Yeah, in Finland, it's like 4 p.m. and it's pitch black.
Same here. During the winter, it's just, it's brutal. So
yeah, it is.
Yay, summer. Yay, summer knits.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.